At the beginning of the year, I decided to make a video game backlog list. I made this so I could organize what I have currently and tackle down games long sitting on a shelf or on my consoles. If you've done this, chances are you know this shit does not work. Upon finalizing this list, I had also remembered that I'm an adult with money who can now purchase even more games. Even more hilarious, coincidentally, I started to realize that these game companies have sales a lot. PlayStation Store in specific has been a real demon, but things like Steam or even retail stores like Amazon or Best Buy have gotten me and my wallet as well. What once started out as just a list of what I currently own turned into games that I'd buy, then play, further dropping the ones I already owned further and further down the deep end. I was buying various titles like Fatal Frame, Okami HD, Sparking Zero, among many others, and what's worse is that all these titles weren't getting played at all. I was deadass just buying games and not even playing them, like it was that bad. What started out as Mario Wonder on my backlog, a game I had previously owned prior to making this backlog list, would fall in line to the newly bought Okami HD, to which that fell in line to Sparking Zero, to which by now you understand what I'm saying. I'll come right back to the games I bought as this ties into the actual subject of the video, but I wanted to extend my issues with the backlog list. It wasn't the most organized thing out there in the first place, but with the titles constantly being added, I got lost in the shuffle. This was when one game I played changed things around. Phoenix Wright Ace Attorney. I promise that this connects to Gravity Rush, just let me write this one out. The thing with this game is I really enjoyed it, in fact so much that I decided to make a video on it, dubbed under a series that I'm calling the I Tried, real creative ass name. For all videos I make, the game I'm talking about has me feeling some way, be it good or bad. In Ace Attorney's case, I loved it to death. Go watch that video if you haven't seen it, it's fire. But in making that video, it killed quite a few birds with one stone. It gave me another piece of content as well as a phenomenal gaming experience, but also helped my backlog out tremendously. After making that video, I began to redo my entire backlog list, this time making it look a lot better and having games I had a true interest in at the forefront. Circling back to the games I bought, by this point in time, I added a pretty solid backlog of titles just off of what I had bought in the few past months alone. One of these titles being the subject of today's video, Gravity Rush. Gravity Rush had always been a game I had known about and was interested in, but I had just never played it. Luckily, I thought with my wallet one day and the game happened to be on a sale, so I picked it up and it sat on that backlog for a little bit. Now with this backlog system of mine, I organized it so my current lineup of games has always had one Switch title, one PS5 title, and one PC title, just in case I'm not able to use one of them. I have the other two to fall back on, though I try to play the games one at a time. So I had gotten to the PS5's turn, and the title that I decided to try was Gravity Rush Remastered. I went into it knowing only one thing. It wasn't long, so at the worst, I could speed through it and move on to something else. What I didn't know was that this would not happen at all, and instead I fell in love with the title. I had bought it thinking it would be an easy platinum, and that sentiment is true. It wasn't that hard. It took me about 17 hours to obtain the trophy. What I also got was one of my favorite gaming experiences ever, and a solidified place in my top 10 favorite games of all time. So with all this story in mind, I'd like to use today's videos to talk about Gravity Rush Remastered, detailing its development, the game itself, what made me fall in love with it, as well as its flaws. In other words, the whole damn 9 yards. But with that backstory out of the way, let's get into Gravity Rush. Gravity Rush, also known as Gravity Days in Japan, is a game released by Sony back in 2012 for the PlayStation Vita. The game is the baby of Kiichiro Toyama, the creator of the Silent Hill and Siren franchises, which is a wild-ass catalog of games, by the way. The concept of Gravity Rush actually began formation prior to both of those franchises, so I really don't know where the hell he pulled Silent Hill from, but anyways. The game was originally known as Gravite in its early development stages back in 2008, and alongside this was also originally being made for the PS3. The majority of the development team came from the team that worked on Siren, obviously including Kiichiro himself. Kiichiro had experiences with the 6-axis controller, known more prominently as the DualShock 3. They're pretty much the exact same controller, to be honest. Shortly after the completion of Siren Blood Curse, the team began full development of Gravity Rush. The title was first aimed at hardcore gamers with an idea of DLC being available for the game as well, which we would see for the final product. This was going on for a year, even with the demo version using models from Siren being made, but in 2009 something would happen that would permanently change the then Gravite. In 2009, Kiichiro received word of the next generation of PlayStation, the Vita. This is usually so developers have a good feel for the console and what to develop on it, whether it's to move current projects or to brainstorm future ideas. Kiichiro grew fond of the system's gyroscope, gyro capabilities, and the wheel began to turn for him on how to integrate the gravity mechanic with something like gyroscopes. With backing from SCE Worldwide Studios president Shuhei Yoshida, development for Gravity Rush would officially shift over to the PS Vita. At first, the development went good, great even. At the time, the power of the Vita was still unknown, with a rough estimate of power being the PS3's, so the team just simply shifted what they had over to the Vita side of things, and encountered little to no issues. This was until they realized what power the Vita had, which was very much not on par with the PS3. When you add on to the fact that Sony was aiming for this to be a PS Vita launch window title, and the pressure was certainly on. It caused for a lot of reshuffling, development changes, shortening staff on the team and sending them on other projects, and everyone's least favorite gaming occurrence, crunch time. The pressure was on so much that they even had developed the game on Microsoft home computers, which was a very rare occurrence for a first-party Sony title. But regardless, the team pushed through and got the game to release on February 9th, 2012 in Japan, and June 12th, 2012 in North America. Now, development is not finished yet, as there's first some key people I want to mention and their contributions to the game. Obviously, the creator Koichiro is the main guy, but I think there's a few equally as important masterminds to mention, with the first being art director Yoshiaki Yamaguchi. Yamaguchi is responsible for much of what you see visually in the game, most notably the environment. Things like how the backgrounds and cell shading, which was inspired by Franco-Belgian comics, are all thanks to him. I'll mention more on the art later, as that's one of my favorite parts of the game. But another person I want to highlight is Shunsuke Saito, the head character designer. He created most of the main characters, including the main character, Kat. His design of Kat was aimed to please Western audiences, with them not wanting her to be tied to one nationality or origin, while also having the same exotic appeal of Lara Croft. One last person to mention is composer Kohei Tanaka. He was responsible for the game's soundtrack, something I'm also very fond of. His work also influenced a lot of the gameplay, offering instruments and sounds that would be as diverse and unique as the game was. I can't quite describe it as one sound. The intro theme is something straight out of a superhero movie, while another track like Vendicenter is reminiscent of France and all its beautiful scenery. There's a lot more to cover with the game's development and specifics into everything related to each developer I mentioned, but that was the general run-through of the history. Gravity Days would release on February 9th, 2012 in Japan, while America would get the release on June 12th. DLC would release throughout the year, with it either being paid or free depending on region. In September 2015, Sony would announce that a remastered version of Gravity Rush, titled Gravity Rush Remastered, would release on PS4. That's the version I played on through the PS5, so I'm not going to be talking about the Vita version here. One of the main reasons behind this was due to Toyama's desire for Gravity Rush to be brought to a wider audience, seeing as the Vita was the Vita, and PS4, well, was the PS4. However, this desire would cease to exist, as while the game did release in February of 2016 in North America, the physical version was exclusive to Amazon for God knows why. This was also still in the early years of digital media consumption, so a lot more sales just naturally were physical. However, the release would tie in with the announcement and subsequent release of Gravity Rush 2, so a remastered version of Gravity Rush made a ton of sense. They also gave the project to Blue Point Games, a well-praised studio responsible for the Shadow of the Colossus remasters, both of them actually, God of War Collection, and most recently Demon's Souls for the PS5. So they were more than trustworthy to handle the remaster while the core team worked on the sequel. Now onto my review and thoughts. I'll be doing this similarly to the Bayonetta trilogy videos I did, but for those that are new to the channel, I'll be going over the story first while tackling things such as gameplay, art, etc. through the journey before giving my overall thoughts. Again, just to keep in mind here that the version I played is the PS5 digital release of the remaster, so nothing to note on the Vita's controls or anything like that. You'd only feel playing on other versions. But with that out of the way, here's Gravity Rush and how it changed my life. Gravity Rush opens up with no character at all, but rather an apple on a tree. The game has the player press buttons until the apple falls and the intro credits roll. While the intro highlights some of the staff behind the game, the apple continues to roll throughout the world and play into Newton's law of gravity before showing the Gravity Rush intro card. One thing I really enjoy in the intro is the voice that speaks throughout the intro. We would later find out this to be Kat's voice, but I'm in specific talking about the French-like language used in this segment and throughout the game. This game has a lot of influence from France, be it designs or French comic authors, etc. It's not exactly French that the character speaks, it's more of a made-up language inspired by French, but I still really like it. I unfortunately took German in school, so I do not have the beauty of French culture within me, but maybe someday. Anyways, after the intro credit rolls, you get introduced to our main character and protagonist, Kat. She's an amnesiac who quickly discovers that she has magical gravity powers with an actual cat, who she names Dusty. Dusty has the ability to alter and manipulate the gravity surrounding Kat, who immediately gets to work by saving a little boy from a black hole vortex thing. However, this little boy and his father, grandpa, guardian, don't take too kindly to Kat. While she saves the boy per the, I'm just gonna call this guy his dad, his old ass fucking daddy. While he gets saved, in doing so the storm ruins their house, and of course they decide to blame Kat like dicks. Forget saving your sweet precious boy, you totally became a storm and just ruined my house. This begins to become a common theme that the people in the city don't take too kindly to Kat because she's what's known as a shifter. We learn this information from an officer named Sid, who becomes a frequent character throughout the story. Every time we see him though, he, much like all the other characters in the game, asks Kat for favors which she accepts every time, even if she grows tired of feeling used. Regardless, she still goes around the city of Hexville helping any and everyone possible, and this goes perfectly into one of my favorite things about the game. Kat. I genuinely think of every game that I've ever played, Kat is in my top 3 favorite characters, and I don't think she's 3 or 2. To start, I love her design. I think the choice of making her a more physically ambiguous character was a perfect choice. Everybody, regardless of race or gender, can feel a connection with Kat, and I think that's really important and rare in a video game. I also really enjoyed the black and gold theming of her outfit, easily one of the goated color combos of life. But it's really her character that ties her together as one of the best. Her kindness shines even in her most challenging moments, which also never feels overdone or forced. She's just a good person who's down to earth while still maintaining her intelligence despite the memory loss. But moving on to another element of the game, we have to talk about the gameplay. The gameplay was the thing I was most warned of going into Gravity Rush, and this could just be me dick riding the game, but I didn't think it was that bad. Control wise, yeah, the game is kinda sloppy, I won't doubt that for a second, but it wasn't unplayable like some people might say. If anything, I'd say the control just took some time to getting used to. Again, it wasn't perfect though, in specific while in the air using the lock-on kick towards the Molloy Nevi type, it just flat out fucking misses. I'd also say some of the gravity control was a little wonky with the camera, but again, it wasn't really anything that made me want to stop playing. I would say if you're willing to stick through the little bit of jank, you'll be rewarded with not only enjoying the game, but you'll also master the controls and they become a non-factor. Now with the gameplay, let's talk about the different kinds of gameplay. First is the primary mechanic, the gravity itself. I touched on the control a little bit, but that was more so for the combat. As far as the gravity goes though, I was expecting it to follow in a similar pattern, but it honestly was really enjoyable. Definitely not without its faults, such as the camera control and it using motion within the controller, but for the most part I really enjoyed it. I'm all for motion controls if it has a purpose in engaging you with the game, almost as if it were bringing you into the world, and I feel like it does a good job here. The best is when you're flying through the city, whether it's for fun or collecting gems. It reminds me a lot of the Spider-Man games in terms of just that freedom flying around cities, though to a much smaller scale in comparison. Gravity isn't insanely broken as it has a gauge for how long you can use it, so you can't totally cheese everything, but there's still plenty of time to accomplish what you're doing, so it offers a good balance. Now to touch on the combat once more, the actual action is pretty straightforward. There's different Nevi designs, all with different spots to hit them on, indicated by a glowing red orb on their bodies. You can either use the standard kicking and punching, gravity attacks such as your slide or kick, or you can use these special attacks, which are charged up throughout defeating enemies. The first 1 or 2 that you get aren't super special, but the Gravity Typhoon in specific is the one you should go to for everything, especially if there's a mass amount of enemies. It's a super satisfying attack where you just shoot a bunch of stuff towards the enemies. If there's one attack to upgrade, that's the one. Speaking on upgrades, that's a requirement to this game. This game features a skill tree to upgrade Kat's abilities such as attacks, gravity gauges, etc. If you do not upgrade these, the game is damn near impossible. Now this sounds terrible, and if you've watched literally any of my videos, you already know skill trees beat my ass all the time. But I'm here to report that both of these are good here. For the skill tree, it's a very simple menu with the ability name and a level up showing your progress on it. Not super flashy, but it does the job. On the other side, the progression of getting stronger is super satisfying. This game isn't meant to be a Dark Souls hair ripper, it's supposed to be fun. I'm all for overpowered characters, and the progression to getting there feels super rewarding while also keeping that challenge and fairness. You can still experience challenge while also breezing through the enemies. Anyways, returning back to the story for a little bit, upon adjusting to your new life as a shifter, you encounter a fellow shifter by the name of Raven. Raven does not fuck with us at all and declares us as an enemy. Unknown to Kat fully why that's the case. As if that weren't bad enough, a part of Sid's request is involvement in catching a criminal linked to the Nevi by the name of Elias. This doesn't last for long though as we kill him off, sending him into a garbage crusher. If there's one aspect of the story I don't really like, I'd say it's the handling of the bad guys. None of them feel very built up beyond chasing them. Raven at first, Elias, the final villain in quotation marks, they lack a serious threat to them. Kat is the main focus, and I do believe that was the right call. She's by far the star of the show. It just would have been nice to have some bad guys or anti-heroes with a little more oomph to them, I guess. Now, during all this traveling to various cities, what is there to do? This is where the side quests come in. I'll bundle in the DLC ones here for variety, but you'll primarily be doing challenges, indicated by a yellow and green symbol on your map. These range from using your gravity abilities to get to one checkpoint to the next, to enemy beat-ups for a high score. I enjoyed doing these challenges, and I felt like they were a good way to really help the player get better with the controls. I will say my favorite out of the challenges was the race missions. It was always satisfying being able to hit a checkpoint with just enough time to spare. If you're going to do any of these though, I'd advise you to upgrade your gravity abilities here for sure. But I did mention DLC missions, and these are the actual full-blown missions, not just challenges. Now, in the original release of Gravity Rush, these were of course DLC that was released after the game had been out and presumably after the story was beaten. In the remaster, they're unlocked after certain points of the story one at a time. It's not required to play them right as you unlock them, but I did for the sake of the platinum, but I would recommend playing them after you beat the story as was originally intended. It's nothing mind-boggling, but they do kind of confuse you for a little bit if you did them before certain aspects of the story. Anyways, as for the side missions in these DLC, these were a ton of fun. There's 3 DLCs released, but by far my favorite was the main pack, where you go around and run errands for this wealthy woman who at first is a heartless snob before coming to her senses and learning a bit more about her. She's on a quest to find her husband, who is caught up in his work. He learns of the harm he's causing his family by doing this, and in the end pledges to spend less time in his work and more time with his wife. It's nothing crazy, but it's a cute story. These DLC missions also give you costumes to unlock, which is a nice bonus. Another little side bonus thing that I just really like is the trophy screen, for specifically the DLC missions, but for all the trophies in general too. I think that the art is super nice and the DLC missions connect them all to be a picture. It's really cool. But returning to the story, the other key character in the game you get introduced to is Gade, who is known as the creator of the world. At first, Kat thinks he's just some blabbing old man, but upon seeing that he's the real deal, Kat agrees to help Gade restore Hexville's sections, despite warning to not from Raven. To take a deeper look into one of these chapters, I want to talk about my favorite chapter in the game, Chapter 7, Too Many Secrets. This chapter is my favorite for a few reasons, the first being the visuals. I've said it a few times before, but I'm a sucker for that nighttime, bright city light aesthetic. That, mixed in with Gravity Rush's stunning art style, makes the city of Plejon one of my favorite areas in any game period. Also known as the Entertainment District, it houses things like bars, shops, and venues for recreation. It also houses the main section of this chapter, Arquebus Academy. As for the story, you encounter a guy you previously met named Newt, who after hitting you with the door asks you to help save one of his friends, a girl named Echo, who has gone missing. Newt also does a little flirting with Kat, calling her cute and giving her the impression that he has a crush on her, but if you've played this game, you know the tragic story I'm about to tell. So Nevi consumes Echo, which we end up having to kill the Nevi to save Echo. We learn that the Nevi was actually just trying to protect Echo, but shit had to be done, I guess. Upon seeing Newt, Echo and him share an embrace and their feelings for one another, with Newt offering to protect her now as she used to protect him as kids. However, and as messed up as this sounds, this is my favorite chapter because of how Kat gets played by this damn guy. This dickhead leads you on, calling you pretty and how much fun he has with you, only to shit on you and be with some weirdo girl instead. Seeing Kat upset, just walking away from it, felt oddly relatable. I've been played too, Queen, it's all part of the game, I promise. Perhaps I like this chapter because of my own personal experiences, but it was definitely Kat at her best as a character, and it was from here that I fell to bond with the character. Anywho, following the defeat of Elias, you restore the final piece of Hexville, to which she's offered a spot in the military, though she declines. The following day, she encounters a woman who dropped a letter from her deceased boyfriend on the edge of Hexville, whom asks Kat to go and retrieve it. Kat in good nature agrees and travels to the depths, which is known as the World Pillar. Along the way down, Kat's gravity power fades out and she and Raven, who tries to stop us, get attacked by Nishi, a large Nevi, and crash down into the city of Botum. Botum is the city below the pillar where seemingly lost people are. She's awakened by a group of kids and their leader Zaza, not like weed, but after gaining their trust you learn of how they're here in the first place. The kids were on a bus that fell into the World Pillar but never got rescued by their parents, even leaving a member presumably dead by the name of Satya. We then learn that Zaza, as leader, has been trying his best to protect the kids and give them encouragement that they'll be saved, but in reality he knows that they aren't too far from death by the rising ocean below them. We make it our mission to help the kids return to Hexville, but unsure of how to do it. That's when the MVP of this story, Sienna, comes in. She's one of the kids in the underworld, and our entire time knowing her, she's a total nutjob, but for good reason, as she's actually also a creator of worlds, specifically being able to access dreams and awakening. We also learn that Kat was once a part of a higher up position in the World Pillar and suffered due to great burden. After regaining some power, Kat alongside with Raven activate what's known as the Ark, essentially a spaceship to travel back to Hexville. This is also where we learn that Raven is actually Satya all along, and that she's sorry for thinking Kat was an enemy, when the whole time she was really an ally. Raven was told by Danelica, the now mayor of Hexville, that he promised to rescue the children of the World Pillar if in return she stopped Kat from restoring Hexville, which was a lie of course. Upon activating the Ark, Kat falls into unconsciousness and arrives back in Hexville, realizing an entire year has passed, now with Danelica at the helm and martial law. After a final battle with Nishi, we see it get obliterated by a military operative named Unica, as well as learn that Sid is now part of the military after the police force got disbanded. Offered a second chance to join the military, Kat again refuses and leaves. She's encountered by a scientist named Andro, who's asked her to help him set up reactors around the city. This guy also is really fucking annoying, by the way. He just keeps asking you for one more thing, but he never ends up stopping. But anyways, it's revealed that he's actually a bad guy and was working with Danelica. Before we do that, we return home and sleep to be awoken by a nightmare of Elias and our power being gone once more. having to recollect it in the form of split up Dusties throughout the area. Once returned and reunited with the full Dusty, we kill Elias again, being awoken for real this time by Sienna, somehow. We take it that the children and Raven are still safe and that they are making their way back to Hexville. We then go into Vendor Center for an announcement by Denelica, his special weapon designed to wipe Nevi. We attempt to fight Nevi, but there's too many, though the weapon just wipes them out clean. Unica returns and urges us not to fight, but we do, which causes for a cool sky battle between Cat and Unica. After defeating Unica, we get frozen by the military, though Sid comes to our rescue and unfreezes us, as well as being reunited with Dusty. However, Denelica's weapon suddenly goes haywire and begins blasting at the city itself, calling for Cat, Unica, Sid, Sienna, Gade, and a returning Ark and Raven to help save the day and defeat the giant weapon, which they all do in a pretty epic final battle. Ultimately, Cat is heralded a hero by Hexville, and Denelica gets arrested and called for resignation. The end. Fuck, that was quite the story. If you've made it this far, thank you for watching so far. Quick little break time. I recently went to San Francisco for my first vacation in like 15 years, and my first time flying solo altogether. The trip itself was wonderful and amazing, but I went to the Nintendo store, of course. Here's my haul on the screen for all you. I hope that you enjoy it. Anyways, back to the video. So that was Gravity Rush, and the simple question now is, how did it change my life? This game has easily become one of my favorite games of all time, leaving a good impact on me. The simple answer, I fell in love with the charm. Everything about this game swooned me. The most obvious was with Cat herself. Her kindness and personality resonated with about everyone who played the game, and I'm no exception to that. The gimmick of gravity honestly blew my mind despite it being a decade-plus old game. It's probably how I imagine kids felt from going from 2D to 3D in the 90s. But while again, yes, it is a little janky at times, the gravity control was a ton of fun. Of course, the art style just blew me away. The comic book style, the cell shading, God, it's so beautiful. The soundtrack as well adds a lot of charm to it, giving a lot of life to these areas. All this encapsulates charm, and I was left feeling very charmed and wanting more. Almost immediately after beating the game, I bought the second one, which hopefully I can get a chance to visit in a future video. As weird as this sounds, even the game's flaws left me charmed. That could be total dick riding, but I wasn't ever frustrated with them. I don't feel like anything was extremely unfair, and even annoying things like certain enemy types, I was always too overpowered that if I missed them, I never took crazy damage that could knock them out in a few hits. I don't think the game's perfect in a realistic sense of things, but to me, it's very special and the perfect kind of game, and that's all that really matters. If you haven't played Gravity Rush, I highly recommend it. The best way to play is buying it digitally on either PS4 or PS5, and it's on sale pretty much all the time. I believe I got mine for $15 or $20, and I can tell you I would have paid full price. I also, and this one might be kinda crazy, I think this is the best superhero game of all time. Anyways, that was all from me though. If you haven't played the game, has this video inspired you to try it? Or if you have, what did you think of Gravity Rush? Let me know all that as well as what you thought of the video down below. I don't usually do this in videos, but if you enjoyed the video, I would really appreciate it if you left a comment, like, and subscribing to the channel. I make other videos on games if you're interested in that. But with that, thank you all for watching, and I'll see you guys next time. Goodbye.